Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Men and Sex. I'm your host, Mr. Wood. This podcast is all about normalizing the taboo conversations and understanding that the things we don't talk about end up having power over us. Today, I've got a special guest, a new teacher of mine. His name is Justin Gottlieb. He's a Tantra love coach, sexual freedom coach. He does tantra retreats, tantra massage, fantasy fulfillment. He goes to sex parties and events and supports people in liberating themselves. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so good to have you. And first, I want all you listener, all of you listeners to hear a little bit about my own experience because I just returned from a 5-day retreat with Justin. I only followed Justin, who's known as the Tantra Love Coach on Instagram, a few months ago, and he put something up on his story, which was an event in Austin, Texas, and I jumped on it. It was a Tantra transformation experience. Let's talk about what it was for you to put this on because I know it was the first one of its kind, and then I'll share with the listeners a little bit about my experience there.
Yeah, sure. Me and my retreat partner, Leola, have been doing the Tantra Love Retreat for many years now. I think this was just our seventh one, and it's been very successful, been a lot of fun. It's really about learning about Tantra, exploring it, creating community, and empowering yourself. And so many times people have asked us, well, what's next? What's the second level? What's level two? And we finally put it together, and it's way more than a tantra retreat. It's really about transformation. It's about noticing how you're showing up in the world, and sometimes that's about lighting a fire under your ass. Other times it's about noticing your shadows. Other times it's about where can I step into my leadership. So we really put this together, putting the best exercises that we could think of with a very curated, screened group that allowed us to go way deeper and do some more intense exercises than we'd normally be able to do.
Hmm. And I realize it's probably important to get your thoughts on this because I feel Tantra is one of those words like God or love that can have so many different meanings. And how can we simplify this word for some people that may not be in the world of Tantra or understanding what that is?
I'll give you my short explanation and then the longer one, but really how you could define it is acceptance. If you can accept yourself as a human in this human experience, and that means accepting your body, your emotions, your sexuality, you're going to have a great time in this life.
Mm.
And that's what really Tantra is about. It's about exploring the five senses. It's about being present, about connecting. But really, if you can't accept yourself in this body, if you can't accept this self that you have anger and frustration and jealousy and different things that move through you, and you just try to repress them, if you can't be aware of your patterns and trauma and things like that, it's going to be a tough go. And to me, if you can illuminate all of those areas, you can live more tantrically. And the area that I focus on in my work is around sexuality and intimacy because this is the most taboo and the least talked about area. And to me, it's actually the most important, considering our sexual energy is the energy of creation. It is what can bring us the closest to God. It is what creates more human beings, limitless potential. And of course, there's orgasms and deep pleasure available too. I teach neo tantra, modern tantra. I don't get too dogmatic or into the deep, traditional side of it, which is beautiful and amazing. But people come to me who are typically, your regular Joe who's like, hey, I want to learn about this. I want a deeper connection to my partner. I want to be able to explore my fantasies without shame. So there's a place for that with my work.
So for me, this was my first Tantra retreat event like this. But I felt a beautiful bridge because so much of my background is on the transformation side of things and the personal development side of things. And I think you guys did such a great job putting the two together, which was working with eros and sexuality, but simultaneously doing deep work of around beliefs, around patterns, around habits. And that's, I think, the potential that so many people are missing out on when the sexuality is repressed and hidden and denied and not talked about in relationship is there's so much gold there for us, particularly in relationship when we're having things come up in our intimacy and sexuality. So I mean, for the listeners, some of the exercises we did were just out of this world and just on a whole, like, some of them I walked away from and I was just like, oh my gosh, my nervous system and my experience, my like information of the human experience just expanded tenfold. I don't know if we want to talk about any of the exercises on the show, but it was mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away any of the secrets because I hope that everybody on here will have an opportunity to do it. But
Yeah.
certainly, you could talk about maybe your experience and what you learned and things like that.
Yeah, I think just some of the practices in being with and this has been a continual expansion for me, and I think this is one that listeners and people early on the path have a lot of opportunity to expand into, which is to be connected to sexual energy when around other people and have the nervous system be calm. That if I'm experiencing, and this is a huge one for a lot of men that are straight and afraid of sexuality and sexual energy around other men, to be able to expand into experiences where there's sexual energy felt and there's other men present, that's huge. To go through all the belief systems and fears and worries about sometimes I'm afraid I'm in danger. Sometimes I'm afraid, about what might come up for me. Like there's all these fears that are cycling through the body and just experiences like that. And then simultaneously to be around so many beautiful women in those experiences and all the thoughts that come up in that process as well.
Yeah, there's intellectual IQ, which people, can do a little bit to work on, and some of that's just, how you're born. And then there is emotional IQ, which clearly we need to do a lot of work on to really understand our own emotions and others. And there's another thing that I talk about, which is sexual IQ. How are we in sexual situations? How are we with intimacy? And that all starts with you. And you can't really sit at home by yourself and figure that out. You kind of have to be in community. You have to be interacting with other people. And even if that means sitting in the corner and like watching all this stuff go down and be like, whoa, I'm noticing an insecurity come up. I'm noticing that I'm literally deathly fearful of going to speak to that girl that I think is beautiful. I'm ashamed of my body. You're going to notice this stuff in a bigger way. A bigger light is going to shine on it when you're with other people. And, in a lot of my retreats, I'll separate the men and the women, and I'll just ask everybody, like, how do you feel now that you're just here with the men? And some feel completely relieved and like, oh my God, there's none of this like worry about women and am I gonna have to pair with someone or what does that girl think of me? And others are just like, I'm actually really nervous to be about around a bunch of men, or I'm never around this many men, or I feel safe to share something, or now I don't feel safe to share something. So putting yourself in these situations is why these trainings and retreats are so powerful, and you have to be ready for it. And that's something that we take a lot of care in as well.
Now, you travel the world doing this. You've been doing it for a while, not only in your retreats, but different events, different parties. Even you said some people hire you for fantasy fulfillment. I think, one of the things I like to do on this podcast is just open people's awareness to what's going on right now. And I think a lot of people don't understand the potential and possibilities of what's happening in the world right now when it comes to sexual liberation, whether it's tantra, whether it's parties. And even I'm still continuously expanding and understanding like what's going on in major cities, what's going on in these different areas. There's sites like FetLife. There's all these things where people are exploring and connecting. And I think a lot of people have no idea that it exists. So they are stuck at home like, well, I can't do anything about this because there's nowhere to do anything. And the more I explore, the more events I see and people living this lifestyle. So what can you share a little bit with the listeners of just like what's going on in this world and exploration and liberation so they don't have to think that they should just sit at home and figure it out alone?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to grow up, be born in Brooklyn. I grew up in Jersey, so I was always I lived in Manhattan for 9 years, so I basically had access to everything, right? New York City's got it all. Then I moved to Miami. It's pretty much got its all too. But I travel the world because I love to get outside my box. I love to explore what else is out there. And honestly, like Europe has a whole nother world of just sexuality, events and curation, and also just a different culture, right? Like I remember going to my first sauna this was in Germany, but also in Sweden and places like that. And like I'm going in with my bathing suit and like, okay, and like they're like, no, no, you're not allowed to wear that. Like you cannot wear a bathing suit in the sauna. It's not it's forbidden. And I'm like, Oh my God, imagine if someone did that to you in America. I'd be like, oh, you have to take off your bathing suit right now. You have to be naked in here. So it's wild, and there is a different mentality towards nudity and things like that that we just don't have here. So if you just stay here, you're going to have a different experience. But also, some of these places, like this summer, I went to Cap d'Agde. That is a place in the south of France. Cap d'Agde. It's spelled Cap CAP D apostrophe AGDE, and it basically is a naked city. You can go to the grocery store naked. You can go to the clubs naked. You go to the beach naked. There's places on the beach you can have sex. There's places in clubs you can have sex. Some places you can have sex anywhere. And it blows people's mind, and it's been there for decades. And it's just kind of now, I think in the past 10 years, really started to open up to more of a younger crowd. It was really more like nudists, and now it's really become, I call it like the swinger capital of the world. So that's one thing. I mean, I spent a week in Berlin, and the reason I go to Berlin is to go to Kit Kat Club, which is one of the most famous fetish clubs in the world. But I really also go there for this amazing spa that I love so much. And it's a fully nude spa where it's co-ed and everybody's naked. It's non-sexual. It's some of the most beautiful people you'll ever see and meet. And they have like 20 different saunas and steam rooms, and it's 5 star, and they have an outdoor pool area that's just like crowded and beautiful. And it's an amazing experience. So really what I seek is connection and liberation. And I think if that's what you're going for, you're going to have a great time at any of these kind of events and experiences. If you're going to get a need met, like, oh, I need to have like go have sex with 20 people, or I need to go find the hottest girl in the world and whatever, now your expectations will probably lead to resentment or some not so great situation. So to me, you have to really get in tune with yourself and what you're looking for, and really have done the deep work before you start going out into all these places, and really make sure that you're going to be appropriate in there and that you're meant for this space as well as the space is meant for you. So that's kind of like just some interesting places I've been. I go to the Tantra Festival in Sweden quite a bit. It's in this beautiful like forest in the middle of Sweden. Um, and so many events in Miami and New York that I love to explore. And then a lot of the things I do is private. So I have couples and people that call me up, and they do private retreats with me because they feel safest to explore this with just a professional. Once you open it up to something that's not with a professional, you got everybody and anybody. And some of those people aren't really attuned. They don't have high emotional or sexual IQ. And now, you're feeling threatened with your relationship, or you're just really haven't done the work to set up an experience like that. So this is not something I ever recommend you just jump into on your own. And that's kind of the work that I do. I can do virtual coaching with people to help make sure that whether they're single or in a relationship, that they're ready to go to these events and do it in a safe way that will be expansive. Because if not, it will be very contractive and you won't have a good time. And sometimes, especially if you're with a partner who is maybe a little hesitant, and you bring them to this big experience and they don't like it, they may never do that again. And now you've kind of ruined it, as opposed to going in it slowly and safely. So that's the kind of some things available. I mean, I was hired for the probably the coolest party I've ever been to. It was a week-long event in Cannes, France, and it was funded by some billionaire. And basically, it was a week of the most 5 star beautiful villa like parties and events and performers from all over the world. And like, yeah, there was wild sex parties. But I was there to teach Tantra. So I went and was able to teach Tantra to a lot of people that were used to these hedonistic parties, and like they were greatly affected and impacted. And I do that for a really high end, I guess you'll call it a sex party group. And it's lifestyle swinger stuff where typically it's just like, hey, let's all get together and party and have sex. And most times when I talk to people and I have any sort of curation, they're like, that was amazing. And I'm like, all I did was have us all get together, introduce each other, and like that's it. Like really like have a consent talk. But for some people, that's amazing. For me, that's just standard, right? That should be the case. And then I like to curate some workshops and little events and experiences, and even sometimes just a talk of like, what would you love to have happen at this experience? What would be amazing for you? And like, what wouldn't you like? What are some of your boundaries? Did you speak to your partner about your boundaries? If you haven't done that and you're going to one of these events, it's going to be really, really scary. So that's some of what's out there. And if you're not ready to jump into the real world and all that, there's, like you said, Life. There's another more of like a lifestyle swinger website called SDC.com. I work with them. I love them, and they have a great connection website. And sometimes you find events and things like that on there, and you make connections, and you wait till you're ready, and then you maybe go to something and meet somebody there.
You said a word that I think is really important to talk about because I think this is something that comes up in this subject. You talked about hedonistic. And I think because of how society holds sexuality and the tabooness of it all and the repression and the denial, And we like the seven deadly sins and lust. I feel like there's this 0 to 100 feeling that might come up for people that it's like, if I explore sexuality at all, it's hedonistic. And now I'm in the lust department. And now and then if they have any connection to religion or whatever, all this is bubbling up inside of them. And there are steps. There are important steps to go on. And I think one of the important things is walking across that threshold and saying, no, this is, and like you talked about the intelligence of, your sexual intelligence. No, this is part of being human and broadening what we're experiencing. And unless we're celibate, it's something that I think we should be stepping up the tiers of becoming more intelligent. What are your thoughts around facing that belief system around, oh, if I explore sexuality at all, I'm hedonistic?
Yeah, a lot of damage has been done in this world, whether it's through religion or other things, where we've put this shame on our sexuality. And there's also like a new movement of like, monogamy is the only way. And it's like, this is the only way you can be truthful and God and all that, bringing this into it. I'm like, spirituality and sexuality are two sides of the same coin. That's it. If you separate it out, now you're making one have the ability to be good or bad and the other one good or bad and whatever that may be. And typically people don't say spirituality is bad unless they start getting into like, oh, black magic and voodoo and oh, they're using this to hurt people, right? But sexuality is very easy to demonize because of what we've been told since we were little kids. Many of us have been told don't have sex till you get married. And it's like, well, why? Is it bad to do this? I feel this coming up in me. I'm a teenager. I've got hormones. I want to explore with somebody. Or masturbating's wrong, or you get yelled at, or you slap your hand away if you're a little kid and you're touching yourself. And like, this is part of our human nature, right? I don't think God made a mistake and like, oops, sorry, I made you guys horny from a young age, and this is what you have to deal with. Cut that off. So, I could go on for days talking to people who think sexuality is wrong or bad. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go down a bad path with it. But
Yeah.
to say sexuality is wrong or bad or inherently, exploring it is blasphemous, I don't think that's doing anyone a service either. And all of this is not for everyone. And I want to be clear, I'm not condoning everybody go out and jump into like open relationships or go to sex parties, right? Like if monogamy is for you and you feel that in your bones and that's it, great. I personally knew from probably the age of like 17, I was like, I don't want to just have sex with the same woman for the rest of my life. It's very clear. I was in finance in New York City, and I remember all these guys had like two separate phones. One was for their side woman, and the other was for their family. And I was just like, yeah, I don't want to go down that path. I don't ever want to be the guy who's going to deny the fact that, like, yes, I'm going to want to have sex with more than one woman for the rest of my life. And I don't want to be out of integrity. I want to be
Mm,
virtuous and I want to be honoring, my woman. And by
mm.
honoring her is admitting who I truly am and what I truly want. And I'm very clear with anybody early on in any relationship. Also, it's very public for me that this is what I do, right? This is partly my job. This is partly, it's fully who I am. So I don't want to have anyone be untruthful with me and vice versa. So they know what they're getting into. And what they're getting into is amazing communication and depth of our souls and exploring our vulnerabilities and knowing what our trauma is and accessing our shadows in a way that we can heal. So that's a great journey, but it's also a big commitment, right? With awareness comes great responsibility. And once you are choosing to go down that path, there's points in my life where I look back and I'm like seeing a guy who's like a janitor and he's sweeping the floors. And I'm like, God, I actually missed that. Like how simple that is to just be able to be like, I'm going to go clock in. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to go home. I'm going to have my meal. I'm going to watch the baseball game. And now I'm like in this like existential, like, wow, there's so much to do. And oh my God. And every minute I'm like watching Netflix and I'm like, oh my God, is this okay? Like, shouldn't I be writing my book? Shouldn't I be doing this? So, there's all this sides to everything, right? And
Yeah.
sexuality is the same. So if we can just actually do our work and own who we are and experience this, do our healing, then you're going to decide for yourself, like, is this maybe going to Captag or going on these websites for me? You don't want to go into it with any resentment of who you are or your own fantasies. So when I do fantasy fulfillment experiences or just do any couples work, I usually have them write down their fantasies separately and then I'll have them speak them out loud, but I only allow the other person to just raise their hand if they get triggered or they feel something happening from it. So now it's not you're being yelled at because you have this fantasy. It's like, okay, we're going to talk about this and what's coming up for you because your partner wants to have a threesome with another woman. You're feeling really jealous. Okay, cool. Why is that? Why do you think that is? And we can go through this and make it like a great conversation that could not only be healing but expansive and create opportunities rather than an immediate shutdown. I wouldn't ever want my partner not to be able to share what their truths are, their fantasies, their sexual needs, all of that. So we get into just a space of if we can communicate, first we have to know what it is, but if we can communicate our desires in this world and our boundaries, we're being empowered. And if we're empowered, now we can move through this life masterfully and easefully. So this is the kind of world that I want to live in. And I'm happy to debate anybody who thinks that, expanding sexually is going to be like a horrible thing or that we should really shut down this side of us. I don't see how that would help humanity.
Oh, I'd love to see some debates on that. It's so interesting because as you said that, as you talked about, within relationship, the importance of being able to talk about the fantasies and the desires. It's so interesting because within relationship, it's so normal to do the opposite. It's like we encourage fawning and people pleasing and repression, which is conflict avoidance. And this is like don't tell me that thing because then I'm going to feel a feeling and then we don't have conflict resolution skills. So then it just becomes a problem that we need time to like smooth over it, but we never address it and move through it. It's fascinating to me because that is one of the main problems is people don't have the ability to communicate because of the fear of the conflict and the problem and the inability to move through it, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides, right? There's like let's repress everything that's within us and pretend like ignorance is bliss, right? You'll be in this relationship and two people could be married their entire lives and have no idea that they had the exact same fantasies, but they were both so scared to say them, so they never ever got to experience them and they die with regret. That's one side, which I will not be a part of. And then the other side is like, I'm just going to air out everything I want at any time without any real skills or tools to do that. And now we're in constant conflict. And this is the exact reason why I think every single person in relationship, and if you're on your own personal development journey for yourself, should have a coach, a therapist, somebody out there who's going to be that third party. I mean, I'm pretty advanced in this stuff. I'm a coach myself. I have a therapist. I love my therapist. That helps me check myself in various different ways. When I was in a relationship, we had someone who was there supporting us too. And it's not just like this Freudian stuff. It's not just this like clinical stuff. It's just like, hey, coach or therapist, can you be there while we have this conversation? Because I'd like a third party to really feel safe to be able to share my truths and vulnerabilities with my partner. And I don't want to get gaslit. I don't want someone to, blow up and slam the door. I want to be able to have a conversation. And if both partners are, well adjusted enough, I think they would want that too, right? Don't you want to be able to have a clear communication? And most people know in relationships, if you're talking about something really difficult and you get triggered, it's not going to end well. And then when you try to do it again, it's not going to end well. And you try to do it again, so it's like you got to do something different. And in most cases, that is having a coach there to support you to set it up properly, to be able to share your vulnerabilities, to share your fantasies, to be able to do that in a healthy way. So once you could do that, now it's like, oh, wow. And there's this relief, there's this weight off both partners' shoulders to be able to do this. And sometimes you might find that when you have that weight off your shoulders and maybe your partner is still all amped up about it, maybe you do find that's not the right relationship for you. But that's way better than pretending and being in a relationship that's fake.
Mm, mm. Talking about sexual exploration and what we discover in this theme, one of the things that I discovered for myself on this path was realizing my own repression or my inability to speak to the things that I desired when I desired them, my lack of clarity in the things that I desired. It was like I felt in my mind bumbly of like, what do I want? I don't know what I want. I'm not quite sure. And I was reading more and more books around masculinity and polarity and realizing like it's really important for me to have an opinion. It's really important for me to have a thought, and the classic thing is like the blue dress or the red dress. And why does it matter, what I say? And living in this time where it's like, oh, I don't care, honey. Whatever you want to wear. And this was one of the beginning seeds where I realized, there's something here for me. And I started to look at the example that I knew, which was looking at DOMs in the world. 50 Shades of Grey, of course, is the big one that comes to mind. I'm like, what kind of characteristics do these men have that I don't have? And that was the thing that I kept seeing was like decisiveness, discernment, the ability to just speak to this is what I want, this is how I want it. And that was what really led me on a potent journey of learning things that DOMs possess, the characteristics that I don't have and I'd like to build up. One of the things that we talked about at your experience was the doming your life perspective. And I'd love to dive into that with the listeners because this path has had a profound impact on my life of being like, what does it take to be a dom? And what abilities do I not have to be in that position? Simultaneously, in the same way, navigating all these negative beliefs and these negative connotations of being in some sort of relationship where there's a dom and a sub, and that exploration. So let's dive into doming your life.
Yeah, so I did a workshop at one of these retreats and I called it Doming Your Effing Life. And the idea was that for so many years, this has kind of just been a natural innate quality for me. I've always just been like, I'm going to communicate my truths. And the truths in this world being out there is way more important than someone else's feelings. Now, that doesn't mean you hurt someone's feelings, but it's like, hey, if I know my truth, if I know this is for the betterment of the world, this is the truths of the higher self and the universe, I get to guard that. I get to hold point on that. And that is something that not a lot of people will do because if someone asks me if you like the blue dress or the red dress, I'm going to say I like the red dress and I'm going to stand by it. And if they're like, oh, well, how could you? You don't like this. And they do this whole thing. I'm just going to go, listen, you asked me for my opinion. I'm going to give you the truth of my opinion. If you ask me if you look fat in something, like you know what you're going to get. You're going to get an answer in that. Now, am I going to be nice about it? Sure. I'm not going to be an asshole, but don't come at people and asking for something, but really expecting some sugar-coated answer, because in my world, that's not how you're going to grow. So I want people to grow. I want people to be held to a high standard, right? So it happens all the time. I'm standing at a dinner party and someone's just talking on, and they're not even making sense, and they're going all around, and I'm just going, well, I have a boundary with my own time and energy, and like I'm feeling that's being broken right now. No one asked me if I was going to sit in a 15-minute conversation about nothing. And also I know that nobody is telling this person in their life, they're not going, hey, you know what? You happen to like meander a lot. Are you open to some feedback? Yeah, I'd love to hear that. What's going on? Yeah, you kind of go off topic, and I'm not sure if you know where you're going or you're conscious to. And it's like, I would love for someone to give me that feedback. And if we all were open to that kind of feedback, we'd be in a better world because we'd all be much more clear and concise and being able to dom our lives, right? So for me, I have no problem stepping out of comfort. Hey, you know what? I got to go to the bathroom, whatever it is. You know, sometimes you do have to make a nice excuse because at a dinner party might not be the appropriate place to tell someone that having basically a coaching session with them. So we always want to ask people if they're open to coaching, if they're open to feedback or anything like that. But I want a world where everyone is open to that, at the right time, so that we can all grow together. And doming your life isn't just about that. It's about actually knowing who you are, owning who you are, being able to communicate who you are, being masterful about all of that. And that means, yeah, not allowing people to break your boundaries. And, there's funny examples that I went through in this workshop, but, you get a call from someone, oh, hi, this is blah, blah, blah from the, registration, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, immediately it's not something you've agreed to. I didn't ask you to call me. I don't whatever. I hang up right away. Some people won't. There's a lot of different things in life where you're like, okay, I could wait on this long line and watch a whole bunch of people cut me, or am I going to go do what I got to do to get what I need in this world? And if not, should it be at the sacrifice of others? So there is a fine line here. And the problem with doming and this whole kind of mentality is 50 shades of gray is people just think, oh, this means I'm going to have a whip and I'm going to have to flog someone and I'm going to have someone on their hands and knees with a collar. And that's kind of like why, sex is what people think tantra is about, right? It's like, this is what gets all the headlines. This is what gets the headlines. But the fact is that being able to understand the relationship between dom and sub, being able to understand the masculine and the feminine, it's all just different words for the same thing. Can you create structure, impact, and penetrate this world in such a way that is clear and concise and confident? Most people, the answer is no. And some people, the answer is yes, and they do it at the expense of others. And that's where, if we actually learned about this stuff and practiced it more, we would see that A, we could actually own our submissiveness. There's a lot of DOMs in this world who are like, I will never be a sub. No one will ever see me in a submissive state and whatever. And like, I don't think that's healthy. I think, like anything else, you should know what it's like to be in both experiences. Like, I have people that come to me and they're like, I want to learn how to do what you do. I want to be like a tantra massage guy, whatever. And I'm like, okay, have you received a tantra massage? Like, no, I just saw it and whatever. I'm like, how do you know you want it? You might absolutely hate what it's like to be in that experience, and then you want to do that to people. Like, I don't understand. Like, there's a need to really experience both sides of this world to really know what it's like. So for me, I want to be able to support people with this ability to understand what that is. What is the dominant? What does that look like? How do you stand in your truth? And then what is the submissive side? And what is that like? Does that mean I give away my power fully? Does that mean I'm not safe? No, there's a lot of different ways where the sub is actually the most powerful. And there is deep healing in that BDSM world, just in the same way that there is in the Tantra world. And I don't want the BDSM world to ever get a bad rap for just being what it is. Now, it could have a bad rap for other things that go on, just like the Tantra world can. But the fact is subspace, which is what happens when you get into this deep BDSM experience. So, for example, someone's getting spanked and they get spanked just the right way, just the right intensity, and like boom, they're kind of in this like my whole mind is cleared. I feel it. I feel like everything and nothing at the same time. I'm like feeling healing, and maybe that's reminding them of the time that their father spanked them, and it was all traumatic. And now they're like, I'm able to heal this as an adult, and now I'm in this space of full submission. And that's not much different from when you're in a tantra massage and you're fully surrendered and you're feeling God come through you and you're healing all this stuff that's coming up in you. So it's really two paths to the same thing. One might call it masculine and feminine and have this lighter tantric kind of vibe to it, and the other is like much more dark and intense. But both can get you to a deeply healed and expansive place.
We're coming out of a time where, masculinity has been it's been poked at in a lot of different ways. And
That's
we're
putting
coming
it
out,
nicely.
yeah, we're coming out of time of, these ideas of toxic masculinity and all these different perspectives. And I see this great divide in men, and one side is growing more than the other. For a long time, it was, what I would call the inflated side, which was, you know, being being hyper assertive, being not, that classic man that's not connected to his feelings and he's just in his anger and he's just like, the action and too aggressive or whatever. And that's the side that gets the most light. But I think that the other side doesn't get enough light that I think is important in this conversation, which is like the inflated side, which is the people pleaser, the Mr. Nice Guy, the doesn't have an opinion. And I think that it's not talked about enough, the negative side of not being connected to these attributes that show up as a dom. And why kind of studying that and looking at DOMs has been so helpful for me because I was very in the inflated, which was I wasn't decisive. I was go with the flow. Maybe I'd show up on time to something. Maybe I'd never show up. I wasn't dependable. I wasn't responsible. I wasn't structured because I just had this belief system of like, oh no, it's all about freedom and I just want to be able to do what I want to do. And that was on more that inflated side where I hadn't built that structure in myself. I hadn't built that assertiveness or that the ability to have an opinion that I just was fully behind in not in a triggered way. And so I'd love to for a moment kind of focus on because I think this is where we're really growing, which is on the inflated side where it's like playing video games all day, smoking weed all day, not really doing anything with your life, not having any goals, not having any ambitions, not going and talking to the attractive person that I have feelings about. And the huge impacts in our society of this side that's really growing, I see right now.
Yeah, we have allowed the masculine has allowed us ourselves to be neutered. Like it's 100%. That's what happened. We've allowed ourselves to be neutered, and there's no one to blame but ourselves. I think a lot of us sat down while we watched the world gaslight us, and we watched the world turn into a place where truth is negotiable and debatable in a sense. And it's like, no, no, there's some things that are just true. They're facts. This is what it is. And suddenly facts started to become yeah, well, if you feel this way, you could have this. You could be this if you want to be this. And like, that's not just not true. And it's fine if someone wants to go live in that reality, but it's not fine for them to make that reality our reality. So we allowed this to happen over years and years and years, and we allowed the excuse to be, well, the toxic masculinity and the the Mad Men days and all this other stuff. Yet at the same time, we like honor the warriors of the past and like, oh, the Native American tribes, and there was some brutal stuff that went down back then. You wouldn't want to be in those days right now, right? But we somehow have like just said, no, warriors nowadays, they're not good. They're bad. They need to sit down. You need to be agreeable. And the fact is I'm very happy to see the pendulum is swinging a little bit back. And what I call is just bringing common sense back. So we need to have common sense, and we need to be the warriors of that. You know, we can't put down our swords completely. Like, yes, we're not going to be running around like aggressive animals, right? Like, we don't need to do that anymore. The fact is that we do need to do that for our word. Word is bond. There's a reason we say that. And like, there's a reason we say, I'm a man of my word and all of those things. And that doesn't mean that now it's like, well, I could just say I'm going to be there on this time and I'm not. And I could just say some stuff that isn't true just because I want to get by and I know I want to be agreeable. I want to go be the virtue signaler. I want to go be the white knight that comes in because it looks good for me. Social status has become the new most important thing for people, and they don't even realize it. Subconsciously, it is the most important thing. No one wants to say the wrong thing. Nobody wants to be accused of some heinous act. Nobody wants to be called a liar and all these other things, right? But guess who's wielding that? They're holding this. People out in society are holding this against you to keep us quiet. So this is the time where we need to stand up for our truths, and we need to protect our brothers and sisters who are out there speaking truth, holding point, especially at a time where our media is lying to us regularly, and we are confused. Many people are just confused. But what happens when you stand up and speak your truth, and it has to do with maybe holding point on masculinity, people will call you a Nazi, they'll call you a rapist, they'll do whatever they can do to just trigger everybody and be like, well, that person's bad, let's just cut them off. And what I see in this world is absolutely reprehensible, which is that people will make an accusation against someone will literally just write them off immediately, not even speak to them, not ask, like, maybe, well, is this true, or what happened, or well, would you like to repair this? People are out for blood, they're out for destruction, and unfortunately, we allow that to happen. And we should no longer allow that. You should not be able to make an accusation about someone without any evidence. And also, people do make mistakes. If someone makes a mistake, and they're like, hey, I realize I made a mistake here. What can I do to repair? And the other person's like, well, we just want you to die, or we want your business completely taken down, or we want to whatever. There are other people who need to step in and go, well, that's not okay, actually. Like, people make mistakes. So this world has really been people that are doing these things to make accusations are being the saviors. They're benefiting from all this. And people that are out there in the world really trying their hardest to be leaders, to support people, to speak truth and facts, and to explore very edgy and sensitive topics. Some of them are sitting down because they're just going, it's not really worth it. It's not worth my entire life and reputation when someone can just say one thing about me and destroy everything. And I think, to be honest, one of the worst things going on in the world right now is cancel culture. And like, people are thinking that it's not as bad as it used to be. Oh, well, the Me Too pendulum swung and it's come back. Not so much. There is a lot of problems. And if you are hearing someone talking rumors about somebody or trying to cancel someone, I really urge you out there to really say, hey, hold on. Is this the best way? And do we even know if what this person's saying is true? Because people know. People aren't dumb. They know that they have so much power by canceling someone. They know how easy it is and what they can do. They're not stupid. And we need to hold everybody to accountability. And if you've been accused of something, great, let's talk about what that was, and like, let's see how as a community we can repair. Not, oh, what's the easiest thing we could do? Well, this person said this person did this, so let's just exile that person. And some of those people end up, offing themselves. Some of those people end up going to deep depressive states, and then they do harm other people. You don't want to take that person and put them out and isolate themselves. You want to support them in community in repairing. So that's, to me, is the biggest thing around masculine and feminine and dom and sub right now, is you can't allow people to just exile and cancel people. And what that's going to create is a society of men and women who have deep power and their masculinity and their masculine energy, and they're going to want to sit down because they're going, this isn't worth it. So we need to actually reward people who are stepping up into their leadership in powerful ways, who are penetrating the earth, who are really representing that masculine energy. And I don't care if you're a man or a woman, but you're doing this in such a way that you're like, I'm taking a risk by putting myself out there, and I'm not perfect. And if I'm going to do that, I would hope that the community is going to support me and not just clap for me when they like it. And then when they don't, let's just tear them down like a Saddam Hussein statue, right? Like, we need to live in a society where people can make mistakes, and also people
Mm.
can't just accuse people of things that aren't true.
Yeah, we really live in a time that does encourage men to not be seen, not be heard, not be too big, and yeah, like that pendulum swing. And I think I see a lot of opportunity for men right now that it's so important right now that we join together and cultivate these attributes. For me, I only hold accountability as serious as I do because of men's communities that I was in that were teaching me about the importance of accountability. Because I was still holding it like a child that was, oh, my parents hold me accountable and I do things to make them happy. I was still holding that and I realized that I had to transform into like, oh no, accountability is my barometer for the power of my word. And the power of my word is me programming my mind that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And so then when I say something to myself that I'm going to do it, then I believe it because I have built this file of information that says when I say something, I do it. And there's so many subtle things like this that I see for us as men to join in together and grow. And I think this idea of doming my life is a beautiful perspective for us to come together as men and join on and say, huh, how do I live my life in this way? How do I live my life in this perspective of like a dom and being assertive and being clear and being direct and penetrative and doing it in a good way where I'm not just a tyrant. I don't, it's not that I don't have the ability to get feedback and get other people's opinions. Yeah, I think it's such a skill. There's so much loneliness and isolation going on with men right now that it's like, this is a perfect subject for us to join together and do this in our own lives together.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good points there, and it brought something up in me. You know, we look at what is our currency in this world, and people think money, right? They think of that as the thing, or your status, and all these things that are validates. But really, the only currency in this world is your thoughts. Your thoughts are your currency. And we know this because if we sit there and think we're ugly and terrible and whatever, like we're not going to excel and get the things that we want in our life. But if we own our bodies and we accept ourselves, like getting back to the definition of tantra, now we can move with that in a beautiful way. We can heal, we can grow. You know, I always joke about my abs. I'm like, I have pretty nice abs. I've been working out hard, but guess what? I got this little fat pouch on the bottom that I call my fun pouch because I recognize how I got it, why it's there. I have some fun. I have some beers once in a while and it's there. And I guess I love it. And I love it not in a way that I want it to stay there forever, but I love it in a place of like, I love you. I accept that you're there. I have a nice little name for you. And guess what? I'm going to be at the gym doing abs even harder and dieting better. And I'm going to enjoy as we find of this new realm together. And we can look at any part of our lives and our body like that. But in reality, around our thoughts, it's like, okay, if these are my currency, if I believe all these things, I'm all powerful. I am creator. I am the image and likeness of God, each and every one of us. God didn't create us, universe, whatever you want to believe in, didn't create us here to be a sheep, right? They created us so that we could be here and explore our five senses in this world and do so through our thoughts. And then what is the next vehicle for our thoughts, which is our words? And if we run around all day saying words that aren't true, first of all, karma's going to be a bitch. If you're out there accusing someone of something that you don't know 100% that they did, your karma is going to be real bad. So, like, I suggest you make that right. And if you're out there for yourself saying things and saying, I'll be there at this time, or I got you, or I'll be there in the hard times, and then you're nowhere to be found, or even just something very typical, which is you have a date with someone, you really lead them on, you love bomb them, you have this thing, and next thing you know, you ghost them. I mean, I would never want that karma. Like, why are you doing that? You're literally telling the universe, my words don't matter. I'm a trickster. I'm a jester and I'm a fool. And this is how I'm going to live my life. And this is how I value my currency. So if we're going to really look at what is most powerful in doming your life, it's your thoughts and your words. And this is why you get to be really clear on your words and be really expressive and um, confident. Like confidence is key, but you can't have fake confidence. Everyone knows what fake confidence is when they see it and they feel it. But like, I want to be able to get up in front of anybody and share my truths without any shame, with full confidence, communicating clearly in a way that other people get it. And that could be as simple as like telling someone I think they're beautiful without trying to get anything from them. That could be as simple as giving someone feedback on their business because I just went and bought something and the customer experience wasn't great, but I'm not going to just leave them out to hang and say, fuck it, I don't care. I do care. I just went through this experience and I'm like upset about it or whatever. Well, I could go to that shop owner and say, hey, you know what? I thought this is what happened. I thought you'd want to know, and this is what I like. That's doming your life too. It's not just for you, it's for others. It's to create a better world together. And it starts with knowing who you are, understanding your thoughts, making sure they're aligned with the truth and your higher self, and now being able to express that and communicate it in a way that others get it. So if you want to just be long-winded and take 45 minutes to say something you could take in 2 seconds, that's not doming your life. That's actually taking from other people.
Mm. I feel like an attribute of it as well is the willingness to try things, to speak to things and get feedback that isn't a full yes. That's one of the things that I saw in myself was the the protection mechanism or the fear of voicing my clear desires and getting a no.
Yep.
Whether it was a talking to the attractive person or telling my partner the fantasy or telling the partner my desires at the moment where I'm fear that they're going to be like, no, I'm too tired or something like that. That ability to feel what I had to feel and expressing what I wanted when I wanted it. I feel like that was one of the most potent skills I'm still developing. There's many layers to it, but was part of the journey of me looking at what does a Dom do? A Dom just speaks to that clear desire, that clear ask, that clear perspective, and the willingness to not do it perfect and get feedback and go, okay, all right, let me learn from that. It's like it connects to what I like to call the erotic scientist for me, which is like I'm always taking in this data and this information that comes back to my thoughts, comes back to what's going on in my mind, in my inner world, that then goes out to my words and how I'm speaking out there. I feel like the doming your life practice is such a beautiful connection between the thoughts and the words in that dance of what's going on in my head and am I speaking to it? It's one of my favorite things to ask people I work with is like, is the porn you're watching, is the things you're asking for, like are your fantasies in alignment for the sex life that you're living? No? Okay. Let's look at that. What's going on there? What's out of what is the blockage there? And so I think, the words and the thoughts in connection to the Dom practices is such a potent path for us as men.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the nose and being able. So one of the second step, I have 3 steps to really living your perfect 10 life, and I'll very simply put it. It is first is healing. So you have to know who you are, know why you're acting the way you're acting, and understand that there's healing available. So you find whatever works to heal. Now that you're healed, and again, it's a lifelong journey, but you're in the healing process. Now you're like, okay, now I know that the things that I'm trying to do in this world, what I'm saying and speaking is actually coming from me. Not from what my parents told me, not from what the schools tell me, not from what the government tell. This is coming from me. From that space and only that space can you get into the next step, which is explore and experiment. Now you're exploring, experimenting the world. You're deciding like, is this thing going to be good for me? Do I like this? Do I enjoy it? Well, I got to go try it. And going to do that explore experiment means you're going to get no's. You're going to get no's. And from a doming your life perspective, from in the tantra world, when someone gives you a no, you usually say something like, "Thank you for taking care of yourself. Thank you for honoring yourself," because we're not making it about us. Well, when you look at it from a dom sub dynamic, I just look at that as that's their safe word. So if I go ask a pretty woman if she'd like to go out to dinner with me and she says no, I might not in the real world be like, thank you for taking care of yourself. But I would say, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad I was able to come up and I hope you have an amazing day. And I'm not going back going, oh, I'm ugly and I'm terrible. And da, da, da. I'm going, wow, that was their safe word. That was safety for them because they could have said yes to people please me and do all these other things. But instead they said no. And that was the same as saying red. And that red as a good dom, you don't go, oh, my subs had red and they needed to stop the experience because there's a million reasons why they could say red. And that's it. Now, if you're constantly out there getting reds, if you're a dom and your subs are constantly using their safe word, that might mean you need to hone your craft. You might be actually not making someone safe. So if every time I went up to any girl in any circumstance, she said no, I might be, well, maybe I need to fix a few things about myself. But in general, you want to be able to get no's and be like, cool, thank you for taking care of you. That's their safe word. That's going to make the world a better place. That I created a situation where someone could say no and I could walk away and not make it about me and not have them feel bad either. So there's a major power in going out in this explore and experimenting stage of your life and getting really comfortable with making your request known in a appropriate way at the appropriate time and place, and then being able to have the yes or the no, and then being able to move with that in a way that's growing for both of you. So I think that that is the important, the most important and the most fun phase. And then the next phase of this living your perfect 10 life is mastery. So you've done all the exploring, experimenting. I've moved through so many different sexual worlds in my life. I've moved through the tantra world. I've kind of created this new brand I have now as elevated intimacy, and it's different, right? It's not the same as the spiritual teachings of tantra, and it has that as its foundation. And I've only known that that's where I wanted to be because of all this exploration and travel and all the things that I've done. And now I feel like, although I'm still healing and I'm still in the explore experiment, I'm now in a state of like, I can go out and communicate these things. I teach people these things. People come to me and are inspired by me to do this. And now the mastery level is really difficult in this world because now I have to go put myself out there. Now I want to teach people. Now I want to write my book, and now I want to do these things in a world where you're catching bullets every second because people are projecting on you. People are, angry at you. They're jealous. They're a jilted lover. You've got all these things, and it's like, wow, I'm in this war zone in a way, and it's beautiful and it's amazing, and I'm guided by my angels, and I have so much support around me, and this is part of it. Right? If it was that easy, everybody would just be writing their books and teaching and doing all these things and making millions and millions of dollars. So this is the part that you have to realize it might not be easy, but it is why we're here. This is our purpose. This is the level where we feel fulfilled in what we're doing.
Let's say a man is listening and he's like, "Yeah, I'm lacking a lot of these attributes, assertiveness, clarity, speaking to my desires, knowing what I want." What are your thoughts on like the recommendation in the path? Is it like should he go try and practice it in the bedroom first, or should he go practice it in his lifestyle and his way of being first, or is it something that's beautifully paired together?
Yeah, I think most people know where they're most comfortable and where they are most confident, and I would start practicing it there. If you are really like amazing at your job and you're kind of like the man there, then like feel into that, explore that, see what you're doing, notice what's working and what's not there, then slowly start to integrate it to other areas of your life. I think the bedroom is probably the last. That's like the advanced level. And that doesn't mean you can't practice it in your dating life, right? Dating is great. I tell people that my number one rule of dating is leave everybody better off than you found them. And if you can do that on going on a date, and that might look like you find someone on Tinder and they're beautiful, blah blah blah, and then you go see them in person, you're like, oh wait, this person does not look like their pictures. How would I leave that person better off than I found them by doming my life? Perfect example. Hey, you know what? I was about to sit down and I just noticed you don't look like your pictures, and that's just I can clearly see and feel that, and that to me that's deceptive, and I could appreciate that maybe you wanted to go on this date with me and all good, but I do not start any kind of dating relationship with dishonesty. So I'm gonna leave here, and thank you for your time. So is that mean? I don't know. You know what's mean to me? Sitting on a date with someone who is deceptive to you, you don't want to be with you, not you're not going to see again, wasting your own time and giving them some kind of hope. And also you're giving them um, positive reinforcement for what they did. Who's
Yeah.
actually out there doing what I said? Who has the dominant balls to go do that? And isn't it the right thing to do? So this is where I'm talking about holding the line, having that sword out and saying, hey, this is my truth. And I am going to masterfully leave this person better off than I found them and ensure also that my own boundaries are held.
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about it is there's an edginess to it because it's within a society where there is so much teaching around people pleasing and conforming and cancel culture and all there is like there's when you talk like that, I feel the like yang erect energy and there's such a encouragement of limp energy, which is to avoid conflict of any kind, to say anything that might not be and like you said it in a good way. It wasn't like, oh, you're ugly, like I'm out of here, like, and saying some swear word or something. It's like speaking to values and speaking to like priority of self. And once again, this combination of thoughts and words of do I want to start a relationship where people are trying to put up smoke screens I love it. It's a fascinating topic that I'm sure could be looked at in many different ways of how we could practice this in our life. And finding the areas that we're good at it. Am I good at work? Am I good at it in relationship? For me, it was, I even was just doing a simple practice where I'd wake up in the morning and I'd write down, this is what I want today and this is how I want it. And it was just this practice of me. That was somewhere I was really weak, is just clarity of the things that I wanted. And if I don't have clarity of what I want, how am I going to have that yang energy to go out there and create it? So that is still part of my practice, but it's now I'm more so moving into, okay, I'm clearer on what I want. Now the next step is building that energy and moving towards it. And so I think that exploration is such a key of this, to listen to people like you, listen to people that are more holding that dominant energy and be like, what are my qualities here that are not very strong and how do I grow them?
Yeah, I think that's another question to ask yourself is what am I pretending not to know? And this is what a lot of us will live through life with our own smoke screens, and we're pretending that we don't know this is what we truly want, or we're pretending that we don't realize that like I feel totally taken advantage of sitting down at this table in front of this person who gave, face tuned their pictures to look like somebody else. And I'm also willing to stand for my truth more than to people please somebody else or more than to be nice. And this whole idea of being nice needs to be looked at again. What does being nice mean? You can't just say nice and everyone knows what that means. To me, I'm being really nice by telling someone, hey, you were being dishonest with me and I'm going to step away from this. And in short term, that may feel or sound outside not nice, but I promise you that person just got the most valuable lesson of their life. Holding someone else's boundaries when you know they can't hold it themselves. I mean, there's plenty of times where I've had to step in and kind of say, hey, you know what? She's new to this and she's not ready for that. And the person will look at me like, oh, how dare you? And I'm like, I'm looking at her and she's like a deer in headlights. And then after she's got, thank you so much and whatever. Like, okay, well, I just held her truth. And if I was wrong, then guess what? She could have stepped in and said something. But I'm here to really ensure that my words and what I'm trying to do is going to lead to a safer and a better world for everybody. And sometimes that maybe won't fit some people's definition of nice. But in the end, it's about connection and it's about exploration and in the end, mastering all of that so that you can live this amazing life fulfilled and look back on your deathbed and have no regrets.
Justin, thank you so much for your wisdom, not only here on the podcast, but for me personally at the retreat. I look forward to learning more from you. And I just want to pass it off you to end the episode here for anything else to put a bow on it for doming your life to share with the listeners.
Yeah, again, I think we're living in a world right now it's got some space for the direction that we're going to go. And I think it's very easy to, identify into these places. Like I do like this politician. I hate this politician. And the problem is that we're all going into this polarity that's just so extreme. And we need to come back to our own truths and feel into like I may not agree with this politician or this party or this viewpoint or this, free Palestine or this or whatever, but it's like, well, what am I really actually into right now? I'm into peace. I'm into love. I'm into people being able to freely express themselves. Okay, cool. That may not fit into any of these boxes, so let's not try to fit into that box. How about I just speak my truth and I hold my sword for what I know is my truth and be open to feedback, be open to understanding that like I could change my mind. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, do you want to have kids?" I'm 42. I'm, happily single, and I'm like, at this moment, no, but that might change in a year, in a day, in 2 to 3 years. I am a human being, and I am this beautiful open vessel for exploration and understanding that, like, I don't need to pin myself down. Like, what a terrible travesty that is to try to make myself only this one thing and stay in that one polarity. Tantra is about weaving and weaving all of the parts of ourselves together into new ways that we can, be whole and explore this world. So for me, don't pin yourself down. Doming this life is understanding exactly who you are and allowing that to move through and allowing God or the divine to move you through. Stop trying to like figure everything out. Like analysis paralysis is one of the toughest things in the world. And right now it's just like trust that all the answers are here. Trust that you are divinely created, and there's going to be so many beautiful opportunities. So yeah, doming your life is so many different things. I feel like it's been a lot of a journey just on this podcast. But if you want to learn more about what doming your life really is, if you want to learn about Tantra, explore any of my events, retreats, I do a lot of private stuff. So if you're not ready to kind of step out into community with this, Tantra Love Coach is my Instagram, tantralovecoach.com. I have a fantasy archetype quiz there, so you can check it out and kind of get an idea of like, where do I fall in these different archetypes of fantasies? And you have like the lover archetype, the lover healer, archetype. You have the explorer, who's someone really like likes novelty, and like, that's kind of me. I'm the sexual novelty seeker. So there's all these different things you can explore in there and get an idea. And then in the end, what do we do with that? Well, where there's horniness, there's healing. When we actually understand what our fantasies are, we can start to understand like, well, where did that come from? And what do I really want to do with that? And is that a fantasy that's healthy for me, or am I reliving trauma? So there's so much more depth when we get into this world of sexuality, if we're willing to look at it and take a look at our shadows. So yeah, anyone, I'm very accessible on Instagram, or feel free to reach out to me through my website. Would love to support you all. And thank you so much, Ian. This has been amazing, and happy to explore this further with you another time. And thank you for coming to the retreat.
Absolutely. And I'll put all your information in the description and show notes for the listeners. So thank you so much. I'll love to have you back in the future. And to all the listeners, enjoy, go out there, dom your life, and come back for more here on the podcast.